Hello, my name is Brian Radishay, and along with my partner Jonathan Tam, have decided to do the topic of WebRTC. We've completed a literary review of the security of WebRTC, and over the course of our paper and this presentation, talk about exactly what WebRTC is, how it works, how it is used, some popular examples, what makes it important, what possible information is at stake, how this information is protected, ways we can improve the security of this information, and what exactly the future holds for WebRTC. To begin, it is important to understand exactly what WebRTC is. WebRTC stands for Web Real-Time Communications, and it may be used interchangeably throughout our presentation between WebRTC and real-time communications. You can probably gather from the name, but it means to allow real-time communications within your browser. Technically, it's an open framework which includes the fundamental building blocks for high-quality communications on the web, such as network, audio, and video components used in voice and video chat applications. These are mainly APIs that can be used on mobile browsers and desktop browsers that do not require any sort of plugin. This is a bit of change over time as WebRTC technology has advanced, originally needing plugins to work as it was not widely supported in out-of-the-box browser setups. WebRTC has multiple purposes, but its primary function is for the use of real-time audio and video communication. The history of communication travels from the use of hard lines, where telephone companies would charge at monthly rates to provide their services. Over time, technology advanced to a state where people were able to make phone calls over Wi-Fi connections, using apps such as Skype and Vonage. The next big step was moving communication to over the web, and that is where WebRTC comes into play.
Currently, there are many applications of WebRTC as the technology can be easily implemented into any website. Adding advanced levels of interaction to a website, allowing the users to communicate in context and in real time, with either site operators or with each other. Such capabilities are more desirable than current limitations whereby users need to call a number, download a plugin, or leave your website. For example, a financial institution website could easily embed a WebRTC communication app to allow users to quickly speak to a financial representative. Another example of a WebRTC API could help with the customer care scenarios. It is a great way for companies to put a support link or button on their browser and then communicate with their customers. In addition, use case of WebRTC is with apps that are created to prevent distracted driving. Anti-Snoozer used an Intel RealSense API for facial recognition to detect yawning and blinking, and then used the enhanced WebRTC API to call a smartwatch to wake up the driver. A further use of WebRTC is for monitoring and caring for pets. The app Pet Alone is a video app that initiates a call with your device near your pet. One can use this app to issue a whistle sound to grab your pet's attention. Before addressing some popular examples of WebRTCs, it is important to be informed that the number of user devices that support WebRTCs is on the annual rise. Therefore, more and more applications are being developed to support the rising demand of users. Currently, there is a multitude of popular WebRTCs on the web, which include Google Hangouts, Slack, Snapchat, and WhatsApp, all of which are similar in the fact that they all are used primarily as communication apps, but are also different in the fact that their target markets are different. In addition, with the rise of devices that support WebRTC, we start to see more companies shift their business models to the technology. For example, Bank of America plans to add video chat customer support services powered by WebRTC to their ATM machines.
WebRTC has a lot more to offer than just another Skype alternative. People may take for granted how important the jump from application-based communication to web browser communication is. Long are the days where actual hardware, such as telephone wires into walls, or even cell phones in our pockets, are needed to make a phone call. You no longer need to download or purchase any specific applications to be able to make phone calls over the internet. WebRTC changes the game by allowing the ability to directly embed media into web browsers. With this advancement, anyone with a browser has the ability to communicate with anyone else with just a browser. One of the best aspects is that using this method leaves no footprints. No hardware or special software needed makes it as easy as possible to communicate with someone else. This is important for multiple reasons. One, it allows non-tech savvy people to catch up with technology, especially once browsers start integrating this ability into their browser systematically. Another reason this is important is that it allows more people to participate. Without the need to purchase applications or hardware, people are more likely to use this method, making the most of what it has to offer. It is not just a new method for conference calls. It also gives developers the ability to embed not only audio and video, but file sharing as well. This allows for a much more streamlined way to communicate, cutting down on the amount of time for decision making and development. The growing use of WebRTC services will absolutely have a positive impact for both personal and professional reasons. We are further streamlining the ability to communicate around the world and make it easier to share ideas with one another. This is very important for our personal growth. It is also very important to understand what information is at stake with the use of this newer technology. One of the first things to consider is that communication is no longer between browsers and servers, but moves on to browser. This means that any security features or validations being done on the server side are no longer being done when the communication is not actually contacting the server. This is something that needs to be adapted to because now malicious files are being sent straight to the target PC without having to pass through another checkpoint. Another point to consider is what operations within WebRTC do we need to give our consent to. You would think most things would require user consent to work, and some of the main features do, but there are a lot of things going on behind the scenes that do not require user consent. Of course, the use of your camera and microphone will require distinct approval to be used. There are some features that do not require permissions though, such as setting up a peer-to-peer connection, the actual sending of the audio, which is done behind the scenes, or even verifying the identity of the person that the audio and video is actually going to. Another possibility is an attacker listening in on the communication. Though this is very hard to do due to browser communication being encrypted through the browser, the attacker would need to know the encryption key to be able to decode the communication. All components of WebRTC require encryption, and it is a mandatory feature of WebRTC, so this form of attack is almost impossible to complete.
WebRTC security measures can be divided into three main groups: client, server, and network traffic. For server security, since WebRTC is designed as a peer-to-peer communication interface, the server's duty is the mediation of clients. As such, the rules performed by the server are implemented using pre-WebRTC software components. Onto the client side, access control. Since WebRTC is primarily designed to facilitate peer-to-peer audio and video chats, the facilitating browser should be able to access the microphone and video camera. This requires the user's consent. Major browsers implement two mechanisms. Media device permission requests should be requested unless stated otherwise by the user. Users must be informed of a media device being used in a clear and visible manner at all times and of the resources used. Onto the network traffic. WebRTC specification explicitly forbids clear real-time transport protocol and enforces using a secure encrypted version of it called Secure Real-Time Transport Protocol. For this to be achieved, we must make a distinction between the signaling plane and the media plane. Each of these can be secured independently, but this may be troublesome. This mechanism does not guarantee that the signaling user is the same as the media messaging user. Due to this deficiency, WebRTC specifications enforce encryption of both channels using DTLS and SRTP. This ensures that the establishment of the media stream can take place without the need to reveal the session descriptor protocol and the message exchange. WebRTC is built to be secure. However, more than just blindly relying on the underlying technology, it is good to consciously code with security in mind. This section will discuss coding practices that may be followed to ensure greater security over a WebRTC implementation. For secure signaling, WebRTC does not impose any constraints on the signaling process, rather than leaving the developer to decide upon their own preferred method. Although this allows for a degree of flexibility that can have the WebRTC implementation tailored to the needs of the application, there can be risks associated with a certain signaling process. Onto authentication and peer monitoring. A basic WebRTC app requires only a user's ID in order to perform a call, with no authentication performed from the viewpoint of the service itself. It may be desirable to require pre-registration of or authentication before any users can participate in the call. Unauthenticated entities should then be kept away from the session's reach, restricting accessibility to untrusted parties. For permission request, it is noted behavior that often users will agree to permissions requested or similar dialogues without consciously reading the message. This poses the risk of granting a web application with permissions that were not actually intended for the user. For screen sharing, an application offered any degree of screen sharing functionality should have warnings in place to protect the user. As previously discussed, a user may not be aware of the extent of the screen being shared. Such a user should fall back to a properly designed application to provide appropriate such information.
For the opportunities of WebRTC, we should think bigger than just the future of one-on-one calling. There is a ton of promise for WebRTC, and we should be thinking outside the box of normal replacement use. Using this new technology would allow you to seamlessly stream to thousands of people on a much larger scale, real time, much like that of Periscope, or Twitch for the people who use it for gaming, with no delay. No longer would there be a must-have application or hardware to be able to use the most up-to-date technology. Older browsers on older desktops, brand new iPhones, everything would be able to connect real-time without issue. Think about big media. With more and more people cutting cables, the idea of a sports team broadcasting their games real-time to viewers over browsers anywhere in the world may not be so far-fetched in our lifetime. For developers and websites, you will be able to encode this technology directly into your website, allowing you to better reach customers. You will be able to seamlessly chat with someone face-to-face who is visiting your site. This is something that would be very helpful as it makes conversations much more personable, and you may be able to answer more questions, or perhaps even persuade a potential client by face-to-face conversations rather than by a phone call or live chat. It would also allow the ability to have these video calls and conferences on the go. With most smartphone browsers being compatible, anywhere you have data, you have the ability to be on a WebRTC call. And the best feature that we feel that WebRTC brings to the table is something that it doesn't require: additional software. The first question that always comes up with new technology is the risk of our security and what information is at stake. How can we be sure that our identity is safe with a brand new technology? The great thing about WebRTC is that there is no need to worry about downloading a virus or spyware or anything at all, because there is nothing to download. With web browsers integrating them, these browsers vet out any possibilities of attacks before allowing them to be built in part of their namesake browser. Thank everybody for listening. That was our presentation on WebRTC. and please let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.